The Netherlands always takes pride in ensuring compliance with the so-called international law, a commitment that is deeply ingrained in their national identity. Multiple states accuse it of complicity in violating the Genocide Convention based on several allegations made against it. Because our country, naturally because we are so compliant, has joined the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom in their attack on the Houthis, those Yemeni fighters who, as is known, are trying to prevent ships from countries that support Israel's bombings of Palestinian children from continuing through the Suez Canal. Hence, due to our nation's endorsement of said bombings, the Netherlands was summoned to the International Court by Nicaragua last week, facing accusations of complicity in genocide and seeking condemnation. If it actually comes to such a conviction, and let's be honest, that is not unthinkable, we will witness what all that talk about international law was truly worth throughout this period of time. Yes, or whether the entire concept of modern international law, in which powerful nations, or at least a majority of states, as though there were a global democracy, are permitted to impose their norms on less powerful nations or states in the minority, is valid and justifiable, remains a subject of ongoing debate and scrutiny. Regardless of whether an individual genuinely believes in that idea, or whether, similar to myself, it has consistently been nothing more than a pretense and not a genuine conviction. Hypocrisy, a tool wielded by the powerful, an argument of opportunism and inconsistency. If international law is in our favor, then we are advocates and supporters of international law. If international law is not in our favor, we do not recognize it. Truly, if we are honest, international law is not always used as a quasi-apolitical pretext to push desired political choices and considerations, but it is frequently employed for such purposes in various contexts. To give them a voice, to make them sound apolitical, a bit like the nonsense of Omtzigt about the rule of law, which is actually nothing more than an excuse to conceal political differences with wilders. Indeed, will the members of the established power parties, the established elites in the Netherlands, who are completely on a leash of NATO, still talk so fanatically about international law when they do not like the outcome of it? Yes, even in situations where international law may explicitly and unequivocally turn outright against the NATO countries. It can occur in that manner because the world is changing rapidly, and the BRICS nations are done with the American hegemony, to which the Netherlands, despite the fact that this hegemony is rapidly crumbling, still remains so subservient and obedient, even though its influence is diminishing. A well-known saying suggests that generals are frequently occupied with preparing for the war that has already happened, rather than the war that is yet to come. And thus, in accordance with the example set by the American State Department, the Netherlands stubbornly clings to the mindset of the Cold War era. You witnessed it in Ukraine, you witnessed it in Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Kosovo, and also currently in Israel. All alliances are understandable, as are the choices made by those who still live with a mindset shaped by the Cold War, in a worldview that is influenced by the enduring impact of the Cold War era. The domino theory, George F. Cannon, Churchill, and the boomer generation's reality. But we are alive now, and we are thinking about the world of the future, 2024, 2025, 2030, 2050. What will the world look like? Where are we going? What is the actual power balance in the world today? What is in the interest of the Netherlands now? Not the Netherlands of 25 years ago, of 50 years ago. At present, in the event that Israel achieves success, to provide an example, in her intended act of ethnic cleansing of Gaza, another approximate 2 million Islamic refugees are expected to migrate to Europe in the near future. Is that bad for Israel? No, not at all. Importance of Israel. Is that in the interest of Europe? No, definitely not. That is not what we desire. You can find whatever you want from the conflict spanning millennia in that highly intricate desert delta. Nevertheless, can we currently regard that specific country as our ally given the current state of affairs? Negative. Are the Palestinians considered as our ally or not? Not either. However, the interests do vary to some extent. Israelis want to drive the Palestinians out of the country, read, to Europe. We want to restrict Muslim immigration. Simple. However, regrettably, they are unable to live in the present. They are stuck in the worldview of their parents. In international conflicts, the caretaker cabinet Rutte consistently chooses sides that are not in the interest of our own country, our own people, our businesses, our children, our families, our institutions. This has been a pattern from the previous generation, and it raises concerns about the prioritization of our national interests. The Atlantic Alliance is no longer in the interest of the Netherlands. In the United States, supposedly our ally, just like Israel, supposedly our ally, supposedly the one we should be getting closer to, that the United States has explicitly turned against Europe by bombing the Nord Stream pipeline in September 2022, which has caused significant tensions between the two regions. Our supposed ally has launched an assault on us. The American people have carried out an act of war against Germany, our neighboring nation. The biggest economy in Europe is currently falling apart due to this attack. The Americans have demolished a pipeline that was also constructed by Dutch companies. Mark Rutte feigns ignorance of the truth and instead strengthens his alliance with our aggressor in a duplicitous manner. Stockholm Syndrome. Understand me well. Accusations of Nicaragua and South Africa re-genocide are politically motivated. I never take them seriously. Obviously, taking legal action against the Netherlands is merely symbolic. However, that is precisely my point. The motivation behind international law is always political. And in the event that we witness a substantial political change on a global scale opposing the West, the concept known as international law will also align with that change. The support hideout of the collective South is located behind Nicaragua and South Africa, serving as their stronghold. The support is huge and growing. In early January, BRICS doubled in size from 5 to 10 member states, becoming larger in population than the G7, and also stronger economically in terms of purchasing power parity. Where do these new BRICS countries come from? Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, Ethiopia? Some of these countries, which include some of the wealthiest nations globally, will fail to comprehend the submissive stance adopted by the Netherlands towards the America-Israel merger, as well as the fervent backing our nation provides for the ongoing Old Testament massacre of defenseless Palestinian children by the ancient people. What does the Netherlands stand to gain by continuing to align itself with, or even more accurately, by taking the lead in extremist American and Israeli politics, and what are the potential consequences of this alignment for the country? What is the benefit that the Netherlands gains by consistently distancing itself from the newly emerging economies of the East? If it's all about helping Mark Rutte find a new job, for example, at NATO, then that can be solved more cost-effectively. Just say what you want to earn, and we'll pay that, instead of jeopardizing our national security by giving away our F-16s to be shot down in an unwinnable war. Truly, the ongoing existence of our NATO membership poses a significant danger to the security of our nation. The departing Secretary General of NATO has said that the expansion of the alliance with Sweden and Finland is a defeat for Russia. This implies that NATO continues to view itself as an anti-Russian alliance, involved in a zero-sum game for dominance over spheres of influence. Precisely what they accuse their adversary of. They do that themselves. It means that NATO is not a defensive alliance either. In fact, it never has been. All military operations conducted by NATO have been offensive in nature. From Kosovo in 1999 to Libya in 2011, all wars initiated through military attacks. This fact alone demonstrates the Netherlands' departure from its original neutrality, defining our country for centuries and bringing us great prosperity. The International Court of Justice is housed in the Peace Palace because the original idea behind it was that the Netherlands stood for peace, that the Netherlands stood for neutrality, that the Netherlands would become a kind of Switzerland. The first International Peace Conference was held in The Hague in 1899, attended by 26 countries from around the world. The conference was held at the initiative of Russia. Tsar Nicholas II had great concerns about the future of Europe. He had foreseen the First World War and proactively reached out to the international community in an effort to prevent such a large-scale war from occurring. Tsar Nicholas II selected the Netherlands as the location for the conference due to its status as a neutral state, which it would remain until the year 1945, by the way. We sometimes forget that, but we have been a neutral state for centuries. Nicholas witnessed the emergence of blocs, power blocs, as an ominous development that jeopardized the flexibility of the concert of Europe. That beautiful collaboration that fell apart at the end of the 19th century. He hoped that The Hague could form a new balance point between, on the one hand, the Triple Alliance of 1882, Germany, Austria, Italy, and on the other hand, the Triple Entente of 1907, France, Russia, Great Britain, and the recollection of the role of the Netherlands in promoting peace, in attempting to prevent a global conflict, in being a beacon of neutrality, of arbitration. This is in a sense preserved by the three commitments in our Constitution regarding the role of the Netherlands in promoting an international legal order. However, simultaneously, it is undermined by this because the term international law and the concept of international law have undergone a transformation. Modern international law, as I mentioned at the beginning of my speech, in which a majority of countries, or at least a majority of powerful countries, can impose their will on other countries, is the opposite of classical international law, which assumes the sovereign and fundamental equality and non-intervention between countries. And that transformation is once again incomprehensible without a perspective of American universalism. The United States of America, a country founded on a universalistic promise, is a nation that explicitly has no ethnic core, no historical core, but is based on a universalistic principle as its foundation and guiding principle. That ground list is a revolution, and that was embodied and propagated in international traffic by a man named Andrew Carnegie. During the Hague Peace Conferences of 1899 and 1907, which took place in The Hague, fundamental principles of sovereign equality among nations were established in an effort to achieve a certain level of peace. However, Carnegie held the belief that true peace could only be achieved through the establishment of a world government characterized by supranationalism and globalism. Carnegie believed, similar to numerous American oligarchs of our time, in globalization within international institutions possessing supranational power. The Carnegie Foundation is a component of a vast network of oligarchic, extremely wealthy organizations, including the Rockefeller Foundation, World Economic Forum, Bilderberg Group, and Trilateral Commission. All of these organizations have the objective of subjecting national democracies to supranational regulation. The vision of Carnegie, desiring a world government and universal peace, which ultimately translated to American hegemony, has had a profound impact on business and political elites for more than a century, blinding them to the reality and leading to a never-ending cycle of conflicts and disputes. Because peace does not arise from the centralization of power at the international level, does not arise from human rights courts, sanction regimes, you name it, interventions, neoconservative regime change operations. Peace is derived from the spreading of power downwards, decentralization, and the practice of tolerance at all levels of society. The aspiration for what is commonly known as universal peace and a global government essentially implies the inevitability of worldwide conflict and war. A considerably superior model for international relations is hence one that emphasizes flexibility, national sovereignty, and balance as key principles. International relations, foreign policy, established on the principle of national sovereignty, based on the fact that there are disparities, that there are interests, but no enduring blocks in place, that the entire world does not need to be transformed into our ideal image, that we are not a revolutionary power, but instead guardians of a delicate balance. Why can't we go back to that centuries-old tradition that the Netherlands cherished, that characterized the Netherlands for centuries? We are not a people of revolutionaries. We are not the individuals who believe that we can make the world safer and more peaceful by desiring to establish the same quasi-American world order everywhere, in all corners of the globe, in every nation and territory. The preservation of national sovereignty and a policy of balance necessitate a sense of nuance and curiosity, not the lifeless hand of American militarism, the inevitable consequence of a country held hostage by a military-industrial complex that exerts control over every aspect of its existence. Our own Grotius, one of the most prominent philosophers of classical international law, developed his system based on the fundamental acceptance of differences, emphasizing the principle of sovereign equality as a cornerstone of his work. In his work De Jure Belli ac Pacis, published in 1625, he expressed the view that there are multiple ways of living, some of which are superior to others. Everyone is free to choose what they want from types, just choose a form of government it wants. You must measure the right that the sovereign has over his subjects by this or that form, about which different people have different opinions, by the extent of the will of those who have granted it to him. This represents pluralism. This serves as the basis for the balance of power and ensures a system of checks and balances. This is the sole method to establish peace. We witnessed it once more in the interview with Tucker Carlson and Putin. You have the ability to converse with him. He wants a compromise. We see it everywhere in the world. It is a shocking recognition. Our very own allies, our very own, what we initially thought were our friends, are the ones who are acting as the aggressors in this situation. It is imperative that we wake up from this neoconservative dream immediately. We must awaken from this transatlantic dream, rise up for the interests of the Netherlands, and embark on a fundamentally different course in our overall foreign policy. That is my belief.